Hey guys, and welcome back to another Factorio Workshop. As always, I am joined by Madzuri.
Greetings.
And today we're going over an interesting rail setup here submitted by elStrages. And this thing it's pretty cool. There's a blueprint book. We'll just put the string for the whole book. It includes the main blueprint, which is what we put down, and then kind of the parts that were used to make it, so you can configure it kind of however you want. Um, Now, this big blueprint, our assumption here is that this is supposed to be for testing, kind of, this all-in-one blueprint, because these down here, we assume are to simulate outposts. And then we have the unloaders and some stackers for the unloaders, which we'll explain further in a minute. But the main part of this that we're going to go over is the stackers and the unloaders. So I guess we can start here at the unload Madzuri, and you can go ahead and explain the stuff here that we need to go over.
Yeah, well, let's start off with the train length. For testing purposes only, the 1-to-1, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and we did this in our last video too. People are asking if 1-to-1's the train lengths we usually use, and it's not. We usually use much bigger trains. But for design and testing purposes, 1-to-1's will suffice.
Yeah.
Next on the list is the active providers. You have to be very, very careful when using active providers in any build, pretty much. So the stack asserters unloading from the trains have a local logistical limit set to 1,000 per the entire system.
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually pretty safe. The problem is that every single time a train rolls in, a bot has to pick up literally the entire train load and move it elsewhere as soon as the train arrives.
Yeah.
So your storage system has to be really, really, really close to the unloading system and not have any other storage chests anywhere. Because if you do, the bots will make ridiculously long routes, and it's generally just not good things will happen.
Right.
So yeah, your storage system has to be right here and no other storage in the entire system. So this is very useful for a very small, compact bot network system.
Mm-hmm. And another quick thing to mention that you told me off screen is that the other issue, even regardless of kind of what you limit it to, just because of the nature of active providers, is that you have massive surges of robot activity when the train comes in, just for the reason, as already explained, that they're forced to pull everything out. So this is a lot of bots that are going to be used all at once, and that is a huge potential for lag spikes and performance drops, because you just have all your bots just activate all at once. And yeah, so these are, like you said, these are designed for 1-to-1s. They could easily be lengthened for something more ideal. 2-to-2s would be pretty fast. A pretty standard one is 2-4-2s are usually good lengths. And you could just extend these out, and with roboports, obviously, you'd be good to go.
Yeah, 2-to-2s would fit in here as designed. All you have to do is extend it by 3 tracks, I think.
Yeah, it's just barely short, so you could just extend it a little bit. And then
Oh, it's about 500 bots per wagon that suddenly surge into the system. So yeah, that will cause lag spikes.
yeah, that's a lot of robots. Yeah, definitely. So I think the next thing we could go over is these stackers. This is an interesting way to do it, and actually a very smart way of doing it. You'll notice, as I'm zoomed out here, that there's 3 stackers, and that they are actually specific to a certain set of stations. This first one goes to the first 4, second one goes to the next 2, and the last one goes to the 2 after that. So you have separate train stackers for each station, and this can actually be very good for your train pathing, especially if you're naming your unload stations all the same thing. Because a lot of times, like what we do, Will and stuff and us, is we'll name our unloads the same because it's easier. So for example, if these first 4 were iron, you would just name them all iron unload, right? All the same thing, and that makes the train just choose whichever one's open. But the problem you run into is if you have one big stacker going to all these stations, the trains like to choose the closest one, kind of like robots. And the farther away the station gets, kind of, I guess, the less likely it is for a train to go there. So that there will be less trains going to the faraway station, which throws things off balance. But using separate stackers for your stations like this forces them to. So, when you tell them to go to iron unload, they will go into the stacker and they're forced to only choose between these four, which are pretty close together. Now, I'm not sure if I explained that correct. Do you have a better way to explain it, Zuri? Or was that good?
Well, that's okay. It also has a function of preventing trains from getting stuck behind each other. For instance, if your factory's eating a ton of iron, and let's say you had a mixed stacker, and your stacker's filled up with copper trains not going anywhere, that'll be a problem because the copper trains will just sit there and not let the iron trains through. But if you separate the trains out by stacker selection like this, then they can't get stuck behind the wrong trains.
Yeah, that's a very good point that I neglected to mention. So, good thing you're here.
Yeah. Also, you want enough entries or parking spots on your stacker for every single train in the system. In case you shut the factory down pretty much and all the trains show up, you don't want them all parked out on the main line. You want enough room in the stackers for every single train in the system.
Yeah, another very good point. So yeah, I mean, pretty straightforward. They come in, whichever way you set up your stations. And we've looked over this, and I think you said, Zuri, the signals seem to be pretty good and properly done.
Yeah, I didn't see any mistakes with the signals. They chose to use the entirety of chain signals on the exits.
Right.
Interesting design choice. I wouldn't have done that, but it'll work just fine.
Yeah, and that actually reminds me, one other thing to go over is kind of small, but you had told me that using one exit path like this can cause issues, or just not be ideal, at least.
Yeah, you might want to switch this up just a little bit and say have all four iron lines come out on one line and then bump over, let's say, copper just a little bit and have them exit out on a second line. Mm-hmm. And a third line for coal, or make it some of these exit up instead.
Yeah, because this can cause some throughput issues and waiting, because all these stations, say, you had 4 or 5 trains come in at once and unload, and they all want to leave with one path. They all got to wait for each other. Only one can go out at a time, which is really going to slow down your whole system.
Yeah, this is designed so that 3 trains can enter at the same time, but only one can leave at a time, so there can be delays.
Yeah, definitely. And really, I think that's about it to cover. Was there anything else you wanted to go over here, Zuri, with this?
No, other than this, otherwise a really good design.
Yeah, really well done. I rarely see the separate stacker per station type, and I think it really is worth utilizing more for the reasons we mentioned.
I do this, but then again, I put like the iron and copper unloading stations on the opposite sides of the smelter, so there's no way for the trains to interact.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, you definitely do this. I don't see it around much in general. But anyway, I think that'll do it for this one, guys. The blueprint book string will be in the description, which again includes the main blueprint and then the parts to it. You can modify it how you'd like. Overall, very good design, and we would love to hear any thoughts you have down in the comments. If you enjoyed, feel free to leave a like. Any more submissions would be great as well. But until next time, we will catch you later.
Later.